Hello, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford, and this is the award-winning talk show right here on Ebru. Fresh Outlook. President Barack Obama rejects an attempt by lawmakers to force his hand on the Keystone XL oil pipeline, using his veto pen to sweep aside one of the first major challenges to his authority by the new Republican Congress. Mr. Obama vetoed legislation to authorize the construction of an 1,100-mile pipeline that would carry about 800,000 barrels of heavy petroleum a day from the oil sands of Alberta, Canada, to the ports and refineries on the Gulf Coast. I am joined today by the Ebru think tank, Jose Lopez, a physics professor at Seton Hall University; Jeanette Hoffman, a Republican strategist; and the Right Reverend Susan E. Joseph Rack, Green Faith Environmental Spiritual Leader. I don't know if Right Reverend is the right way but I threw in that little ad lib. So since I called you the Right Reverend, is the president right or is the president wrong when it comes to his stance on the XL oil pipeline?
Well, I'd prefer to say I agree with the president rather than whether he's right or wrong.
Okay.
From an environmental perspective, I have to agree with his stand on this. And I think it's helpful to set the politics aside. The politics has made the discussion very narrow and short-sighted. And so if we look at the cost-benefit of this pipeline, and from a business perspective, whether it is wise or not, that might be more helpful, in addition to my particular passion, the environmental rationale for rejecting it.
Okay, I'm going to get more into your specifics. Jeanette wants to pick a fight with you right now because she's coming from the right, while you might be coming a little bit more from the left in your perspective. Jeanette, tell me, did President Obama do the right thing or the wrong thing?
From all rational assessments, and this is not just a Republican point of view, this is a bipartisan point of view, I think it was not a good decision by President Obama to veto the pipeline. If you look at the facts, this is something that Republicans and Democrats in Congress supported. It's something that will bring thousands of jobs to our country. It is actually safer. It's a safer mode of transportation for oil to our refineries than what we're doing now with rail cars. And frankly, this is something our economy needs. There's going to be there would have been $1 billion in economic activity, and it will provide more energy independence for the United States, which is critically important. You've seen daily newspapers across the country editorialize in favor of this. The State Department has reviewed this, has put out 5 environmental assessments that have been positive. So it kind of baffles me why the president would veto such important bipartisan legislation.
I'm baffled as well, but I'm going to turn it over to Jose. Jose, I believe President Obama could do this right now for one reason. We have cheap gas.
Exactly.
If gas wasn't $2 a gallon, if it was $4 a gallon like it was 6 months ago.
Right, if a barrel wasn't $50 or slightly around that price, of course he would have approved this and it would have gone and no one would have said anything. A lot of the Keystone has become this icon for the environmentalists. It's this thing that's going to hurt the environment and is going to increase climate change and all these issues.
Do you think that's true?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. It's become completely politicized, and then that's part of it. And then as far as the politics part of it, it's President Obama is really in a fight with his gloves on with the Republicans on this in the Congress, and that's why he vetoed it. I think if you listen to his statement, when he said, it was very mellow, and it's like you weren't really sure what his position was. He went on partisan lines.
I always feel that way about him. Well, so what would be different?
More so than usual, I would say in this case.
Okay, well, some people say he's like Spock because he seems so detached. We'll talk about Spock later, but let's talk about the Keystone Pipeline, Susan. I think this is going to lead to more fracking, which could be potentially more damaging to the environment.
Again, I'm going to say that we're looking at this too narrowly.
Okay. What's the broader picture?
The broader picture is that oil and gas, fossil fuels, are not the energy source of the future. Europe, especially Germany, are already outpacing us in solar. The third world is being very innovative with solar. imagine if Texas could convert their oil industry to wind and solar, okay?
But that might come along a more natural timeline, and I think that's what Jeanette would tell you.
The timeline is shortening. The timeline is already too short. We're over 400 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, which guarantees us climate change that we're already seeing the effects of.
But by stopping the pipeline,
health.
Jeanette would tell you, you're not going to stop people from driving. They're still going to drive.
No,
right, and
no.
Let's
yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is those alternative energy sources are just not readily available right now. And
Right. But they're coming, they're evolving, don't you think?
They are evolving, but our country is very dependent upon oil, and right now most of those sources are in the Middle East. We have pipelines in this country. This would be nothing new, and a pipeline is a much safer mode of transporting oil to refineries.
What's the
than rail
politics
cars.
behind this? Why is President Obama doing this?
If you look at some objective reviews of why he may be doing this.
Everybody claims to be objective.
Well, look, this is something Hillary Clinton in 2010 as Secretary of State said she's inclined to support this.
Right.
But look, President Obama is very strongly supported by the environmental lobby. This goes back to his first campaign in 2008 and his reelect in 2012. A lot of people are speculating that this is, a payback for the environmental community for their support.
Possibly true. I feel like I agree with you, but I see all sides to this issue. Since I have a little fight going on here, I don't have to take a side, which is good. Jose, I'm going to say to you, I think this is unfair to poorer people and working people. Let me tell you why. Because they're the ones who can't afford gasoline when it's $3, $4, $5 a gallon. They're the ones who drive older cars. They're the ones who can't afford hybrids. So in effect, what President Obama has done is put a tax on poor people.
I don't know if I'd completely agree with that.
It's a good talking point.
It's a point. But I don't know if I'd completely agree with that. I would agree. Look, the way it's that oil that's under the ground in Alberta is going to get to us somehow. Is it
through China? No, we'll buy it from the.
No, it's going to get through the rails and through trucks. And if I look at it from the perspective, and everyone who watches this show knows I'm very much an environmentalist. And when I look at gasoline burning and diesel burning on those trains to get it here, for every 1 gallon of gasoline that you're burning, you're throwing out about 18 carbon into it.
So put it in a pipeline
pounds.
so we don't have to do that, Jose.
Well, that's why I'm in favor of the pipeline, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in favor. I believe it's a more efficient transportation method to get that there. It's going to eliminate the railroad cars and the trucks, which are more dangerous. I mean, you have a pipe that's coming straight down. I don't completely agree with the position that it's going to be an economic boom that's going to create all these jobs and all that stuff. There'll be some construction jobs for the few years that we built this pipeline. Then after that, it's going to be mostly automated. It's going to be at most a few hundred people running that pipeline, as all the other pipelines we have moving around: gas, natural gas, and gasoline and oil pipelines.
Okay, so now I got 2 against 1. So let's give Susan some time to
Thank
talk.
you.
Okay.
I agree. Your analysis of this is not a job creator.
Yep.
And if we're
But do you agree
looking-
with Jose that in some ways, if you're going to have oil and gasoline used in this country, this is a less polluting form of transportation or mode of transportation?
I think that's too narrow. Let me give you an analogy. Let's say that there is a family. The breadwinner finds out that they're diabetic. Okay, they've been raised on a sugar diet all of their life. Okay, and they need to make the decision of whether they're going to wean themselves off of sugar, go cold turkey, or consume all the sugar in the house because it's a limited resource for them now, and make themselves sick for a little while.
So you're saying if President Obama said yes to this pipeline, it would be a green light to use as much gasoline and petroleum products as
No, what I'm saying is that if we're looking for improvement in our infrastructure, if we're looking for safety for our citizens, this pipeline is a symbol, an opportunity for us to say, what will it take to change? Are we going to just gobble up all the sugar, make ourselves sick, put our family, our country at risk so that those who enjoy sugar and when we talk about if this is good for business, we have to ask the question, what business? It's not good for business in general. Other infrastructure projects are much more beneficial to more people than this pipeline will be. Improving our energy grid, our highways and mass transit, especially for the sake of CO2 reduction. So I think because this has become so politicized, you know, we're bickering over who's going to win the fight rather than what is a healthy thing for our country to pursue for a long-term solution toward energy independence that does not make us sick and glut the oil companies before they have to change.
Let's have Jeanette chime in here, then I'm going to you, Jose.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I agree those are all very worthy goals, but we're not there yet, as I said before. And, you know, President Obama is not against pipelines. He approved the Alberta Clipper in 2009. So I think, look, this project is clear. It's safer than transporting oil. It's cheaper through rail cars. I mean, there were 114 accidents in 2014 alone of rail cars shipping oil to the refineries. I think this is just one of those issues that you can get Republicans and Democrats to agree that it's a worthwhile project. It will create thousands of jobs. And I disagree that thousands of jobs are just because they're temporary, they're not worthy.
And also, wouldn't it be better to get this oil from Canada than from the OPEC nations, Jose?
Yeah, I mean, we are the largest exporter of petroleum currently in the world right now. And I do agree renewable sources of energy are something, and there's a lot of research and a lot of work and a lot of stuff is done. I mean, you go to Texas now, you see windmills all over the place, and you went there a decade ago. God, you'd never see that. Impossible. So I mean, I think that I'm an environmentalist in the sense of my lifestyle and the way I approach it. And I say, if I can walk down to the store as opposed to getting in my car, pulling out of my driveway and driving a block down, I walk down, of course. And I agree with that, but I don't agree completely that we have to wean completely off of, in your analogy, sugar, or in this case, petroleum. It can't be done.
Well, it's
impossible.
Let me just turn this to Susan.
Our whole infrastructure is based
Susan,
around
do
it.
you feel in a way that President Obama is dictating energy policy in America by using his veto pen as opposed to putting forth a comprehensive approach to weaning ourselves from petroleum products, if that's what his end goal is? And perhaps he could be more forthright and say, I'm vetoing this project because I want to see us develop other means.
I think that's a little naive in the face of what we see is possible by President Obama because of the opposition. I mean, we've seen that the very same policies that Republicans had endorsed in the past that he brings forward under his own name are rejected because he has brought them forward. Is the conclusion
But that might be
I've
his own
come
fault
to.
as well, because
So
other
he
Democratic
does,
presidents have been able to find compromise.
Okay.
President Clinton, for example.
Right, but I really don't want to get into the politics of President Obama, but I will have to say that there I think a fair look at the inability of others to compromise with him as well, and I would associate that with an incipient racism.
Right, and unfortunately,
so
this was one of my posts on social media this week. I said, you can criticize President Obama and not be a racist. It's so unfair, I feel, Susan, if you disagree with the president, to say you disagree with him because he's black.
Right.
I disagree with the president not because he's black. Many people voted for him because he was black, or simply because he was the best candidate. I think, but that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the politics of it all.
Yeah, I think this is not a partisan issue at all. As I said before, you have a number of Democrats ranging from, you know, members of Congress in New York to California down to Texas, South Carolina.
We have bipartisan support. I'm going to give the last 10 seconds to Jose. Jose, what's your thought on the pipeline? What do you want to say?
I think the pipeline is just being kicked down the line. It's a kick the can kind of a thing. The next president is going to have to worry about it, and that's where it's at right now, unfortunately.
Thanks very much on all of your thoughts and comments. There always are interesting subtexts to all of these debates, and some may be true, some may be wrong, some may be right. I may be crazy. Isn't that a Billy Joel song? When we come back, we're going to take a look at Hollywood's self-congratulatory night after this.